aware of that as well. I want to also ask you to switch your sound off when you're not speaking. Most of you will not be speaking for the entire time, so do not forget to switch your sound off. Cameras can be switched off as well, unless you're a speaker, obviously. I will remind people to switch their cameras on in case there's an issue. But anyway, thank you so much for being cooperative. And I just want to remind you that the American International School of Vilnius is the oldest and most trusted name in the international education in Lithuania, fully authorized to offer IB Diploma Program by the International Baccalaureate Organization. And we will have three speakers today. Stephane Ruz, who is head of the school. Good morning.
Good morning.
Also, Sheryl Salem, who is the deputy director at the school. Hello to you.
Good morning.
They will introduce the benefits of international education and the importance of investing into your children's future. We will have a special guest who will join us after the presentation for the discussion that I hope you will all join in as well. Robert Landau, who's head of school at Maui Prep, Western Academy of Beijing and Prague. He's with us now. We'll say hello to him as soon as we talk to him after the presentation, which will be delivered first of all by Sheryl and Stephane. So we're all ears. It will go on for approximately 15 minutes, and after that we will have a discussion. So we are ready to hear your presentation, guys.
Thank you, Gilles. Robert will also participate in the presentation.
Oh, okay. So let's say hi to him then now.
Robert?
Hello, everyone. I just arrived late last night from Hawaii, all the way from Hawaii here to be with you today, and I'm in Vilnius right now.
Oh, you're in Vilnius. Okay, welcome. Hope you don't have a big jet lag.
This is too interesting. I will definitely stay awake for this.
Thank you so much for that. Okay, let's begin.
Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. So we're going to talk quickly about the characteristic of an international school education, the growth of the international school market worldwide. Why would you choose an international education? We're going to look at guiding statements, mission, vision of international schools, and specifically AISV. But Robert will talk more about general and the skills that are needed in the advantages of the IB, and what is the value of great education in the city? What does it bring to the city to have a few international schools? And then the Q&A with Gilles, which he will lead. So what is an international education? Sheryl, go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. So what is an international education? Well, the International Baccalaureate defines it as a comprehensive approach to education that intentionally prepares students to be active and engaged participants in an interconnected world. An international school will probably have students and teachers from many different countries and cultures, but not only the demographics make a school international. The curriculum and the approaches to learning ensure that students are exposed to different languages, cultures, beliefs, and perspectives. And its aim is to increase cultural awareness and to foster understanding and appreciation of those who come from different backgrounds or have different ideas. International schools strive to provide an academic environment that encourages diversity and inclusivity among all members of the community.
Okay. So the growth of the international school market has been unprecedented, and you can see the numbers here. It has more than tripled, 5.8 million students, up from less than 1 million 20 years ago, and the employed staff has increased by 516%. We put up two schools here, Brandon Hall and Atlanta International School. They're in the US. Atlanta International School, it's interesting because it's a great partnership. They have created, Atlanta, as you know, is the city where CNN is headquartered. And so they have this whole partnership with CNN where they do the CNN Freedom Day. And we participate, interviews in the classroom, and a lot, actually, probably 200-300 international schools participate with Atlanta International School and Kevin Glass in this CNN Freedom Day. And it's very interesting, but it's one way they partner together, and I've opened it up to this network of global school. And I'll let Robert tell you more about the growth of this market since he's seen it in the last 20 years.
Well, what has happened over the last 20 years, international schools were born out of a need for usually diplomatic personnel spending a few years in another country to have a consistent education as their children move from one country to another. And that was really the birth and the need of international schools. But then with the tens of thousands of people who live outside their own country to do business, entrepreneurs, government officials, non-government officials, military attaches, the need for international schools have grown worldwide. In the beginning, most international schools were nonprofit associations started by a parent group to fit the need in a particular city. But the proliferation of international schools in the last 10 years have actually been proprietary schools started by companies. Some of these companies have as many as 50 or more schools worldwide, and they run it like a business, keeping finance and a lot of the infrastructure in central offices running very efficient schools. In China alone, there have been over 200 to 300 new international schools built in the last 10 to 15 years. So this is definitely not going away. The challenge has become, how do we find enough teachers to fulfill the needs of all these schools worldwide?
Thank you. Next, why choose an international school education?
So, why do parents choose an international education for their children? Because of globalization, as Robert said, there are more families in the business and government sectors living outside of their home countries. And though international schools have traditionally served expat families, more and more local parents are choosing international schools for their children. They do this because of the instruction in English that many of these schools offer, but also because they want their children to have international opportunities in a more and more interconnected world. Parents are often also attracted to the experience and the mindset that an international school offers. Students learn about different cultures and perspectives from their curriculum and from each other. The international school experience helps students develop flexibility and open-mindedness that will serve them in their further education and in their careers.
Continue, Sheryl.
Okay, so the International Baccalaureate. The International Baccalaureate is the very first curricular program with an international focus and transferable national requirements. In other words, if you study in the IB program, you can attend university in your home country because almost always the IB meets the requirements, not only their own requirements, but also those of the host country. It's an academically challenged and balanced program of education. It has external final examinations, and it prepares students from the ages of 16 to 18 or 19 for success at university and life in general. In fact, many students who graduate with an IB diploma, at least in the United States, are able to skip some of the introductory courses in their first year of university. It's also a really holistic program, and it's been designed to address the intellectual, social, emotional, and physical well-being of students. So it's gained recognition and respect, as I said, from the world's leading universities. And many universities, in fact, consider it consider the IB diploma an advantage when they're looking at candidates.
Okay, now we're going to talk about, just like any business, schools have a vision, mission, and value. We made this vision and mission values about 2 years or 3 years ago with Robert's help. The whole school community got together to look at what we are bringing. And I'll let Robert talk a little bit about it and how they're pretty much the same everywhere, but they have this difference in how you apply them. Robert?
Thank you, Stephane, and thank you for giving me the chance to work with your school in recrafting your mission and vision, preparing students for their future and not always our past. And what we were able to do at AISV, and we've been able to do in a few other schools around the world, is change that paragraph that often sits on the wall or on the website or nowhere that's quite accessible. And if you ask a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, a parent, a teacher, what is the vision of your school? What is the mission? What do you wake up in the morning and what are you looking at each and every day? And what are you aspiring to be? We find that students, parents, even teachers don't really know that paragraph that's on the wall. So AISV had taken upon themselves to create 3 important words that would become the life of the school each and every day. First and foremost, to connect to the school and the school to connect to each and every student, each and every parent, each and every teacher. To feel connected. Once you feel connected, once you are connected, then you're in a better position to be inspired and to have others inspire you and to inspire yourselves. But eventually what you want is we want our students to be empowered to make a difference in an ever-changing world. So 3 simple words become a very complex system. What's most important is what is the destination? Where do we want our students to end up and to continue to aspire to be? And that is this beautiful statement, which is the vision statement, prepared to realize our personal potential, pursue our passions, and positively impact our ever-changing world. That's what's needed more than ever today. The words that you see, the value statements, are what does it take to get there? What are the attributes, the character traits, the behaviors? And so this new mission, vision, and value statement at the school is everywhere. Every person, before they start speaking, they use connect, inspire, empower to introduce their topic. And now you can ask a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 11-year-old, a parent, a teacher, what is the mission of AISV? And they know the answer. This is our banner that we carry into the future, preparing our students for an ever-changing world.
Sheryl, you want to add to this quickly?
No, I think we'll move on to the next slide. So we believe that the education that's driven by this mission of connect, inspire, and empower gives the students the tools, as Robert said, the knowledge and the skills that they will need to be career ready in the 21st century. The technology that we have at our fingertips, all of us, we have our phone at our fingertips. We have knowledge that's ubiquitous. All we have to do, we don't know something, we Google it. And so we believe that the soft skills like leadership, continuous learning, collaboration skills, self-management, critical thinking, communication, these really are what will best prepare our students for the future. And they're embedded in everything that we do, in every class.
Okay, so quickly I'll go through this. So what are the benefits of having schools? And it's important to have many schools in a city that offer different things. So yes, the school should aim to provide a best fit in helping students, the presence of international school in the community contributes to the development of that local by attracting businesses, foreign government leaders, more embassy employee, more everything. And so the city grows, and as the city grows, more schools are created because the city needs more options, more diversity. Okay, the bottom line is education, business, and government relationships are all fundamental components of a community's international strategy. All three must work together to bind regions in mutually beneficial partnership. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So, colleges and universities, we of course send our kids to some of the best universities, and we employ a college counselor full-time that starts talking about careers, about what do you want to do. In ninth grade, we bring in universities to Vilnius to talk to our kids. And as a matter of fact, we're having a roundtable discussion on March 31st. We invite you. We'll get Amsham to send if you want to come. And we're having 3 graduates and a board member talk about their experience. They're all founded companies. One went to Harvard, one went to MIT, one went to Imperial College in London. But we have many others. So we send kids everywhere. And as we send more and more kids, universities are more and more able to say, well, you know, a kid that comes from AISV, that's a kid worth looking at. That's a kid that comes out prepared, comes out ready. And that ties down to the alumni. You know, we're building a huge alumni network. And I can say, for example, my daughter graduated from AISV 3 years ago, and I have one graduating this year. The one that graduated before is at McGill in Canada, and the one going to London. And basically, their whole life, I worked in 3 international schools. One for-profit called the Village School in Houston, which is now owned by this huge system called Anglia, North Anglia. I worked in Casablanca for the embassy school there, and 6 years here in Vilnius for the embassy school. And I see Charlotte. She is friends with kids from Village that are at McGill, from Casablanca, of course, from Vilnius. But they all meet up in Barcelona during the summer and things like this. And so it's a whole network that can help each other, support each other, and we communicate. They keep their email, AISV email for life. It's an email they get, just like colleges do. You know, if you go to any college in the US, you will keep your email for life. And we help them network. Do you want to add anything, Robert or Cheryl?
Well, we've begun in the last 6 years to really put our alumni in touch and to make them feel a sense of belonging. That's part of the connection in our mission. But it is a very thriving group of young people, young adults. The first graduating class was only in what, Stephane, 2011. So it's a relatively young group of people who are finding their way very successfully in the world.
Thank you. Okay, so AISV next year is opening a brand new school. There it is. It's in construction right now on Strovis Street. It will be state of the art. It will be beautiful. We're opening an 18 months to 3 years toddlers program. We're going to have lots of space. Classes are going to be less than 15 and blah, blah, blah. But what's important is that, you know, when we got here 6 years ago, we had 240 students at AISV and there was only VIS, and Queen Mortas was starting. But now, and so we played all our sports game, all our activities were mostly with CISA. And, you know, they got a couple of meetings with VIS, but that was it, which is Vilnius International School. In the last 6 years, many other schools have opened. And so now we've created a league that we founded. It's called the VISA League, Vilnius International School Sports Association. It includes Queen Mortas, the British School, Meridian School, the French School, they say that, the British School, Vilnius. And we play together. So we have tournaments at school. Right now they're playing basketball. We have a tournament April 1st with all those schools. We also invite schools from Riga to join. So the more schools there is, the more choice there is, the more competitive and competition we get from those schools, the better it is. And, then it's a choice. Then it becomes, where do you get admitted? What do you choose, right? So anyway, we're going to have underground gym at that school with a climbing wall. We have windows everywhere. It's going to be magnificent. And then our current location that everybody knows at the top of the hill, we'll have a lot more space for upper school students. But we're also building a climbing wall in our gym. We have built a professional recording studio in the basement. That's absolutely phenomenal. We do musicals yearly in lower and upper school. We offer choice everywhere. We have now a lit soccer field, climbing wall, and things like this. And again, we're going to split every class, so our classrooms will be small with less than 15 students in every section. So thank you for listening. And now we're going to give it back to Givele for questions and for anything else.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this brilliant presentation. I would just take a moment to encourage everyone to ask their questions now. I will remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded, and by joining, you have given consent for this meeting to be recorded. But if you don't want to be seen, you can ask your questions on a chat, or you can also switch off your video. Anyway, feel free to ask questions, because this way you get most of it, right? So we'll accept any questions or comments that come along. I want to first of all clarify the very number of international schools increasing that all of you have mentioned. Is this normally at the expense of national schools, or is it on top of national schools generally? What's the trend? Maybe Robert or Stephane, you could take that one.
Robert, go ahead.
Whoops. It seems to be worldwide that there's a proliferation of schools to give choice. And certainly in some countries, the least amount of innovation often occurs. And this can be discussed for hours, but sometimes the least amount of innovation occurs in the public or government system. I'm currently living in the United States, but I've spent 45 years of my life living around the world. And there is a difference around what the government school can provide and what an independent school can provide. Of course, in the United States, we've created this third option, which is the charter school, which is kind of a public-private hybrid school. But as the demands of the 21st century become more relevant and more obvious around what students need to be prepared for, private schools are emerging that are covering those needs for students, and parents who have the ability to go to the private system do so. But I want to make one thing very clear. Most all private schools, almost the majority of private schools, are equitable to the best of their ability and offer everything from scholarships to financial assistance to free schooling. So almost every international school is not an exclusive school. They're a very open school, hoping for enough host country nationals to be able to take advantage of the school wherever they're located.
Thank you for this. Because you have outlined so many advantages of international schools, I want to try to find some drawbacks as well. And my initial question would be, when you're studying in an international school, let's say in Vilnius, isn't there a fear of sort of dropping out of the national system? If you choose international education, you sort of may lose reality with the country you're physically living in. That might be the fear of some parents.
Well, I'll take that, and then you can go, Sheryl. But first of all, we fought hard, but we have a NIASC accreditation, which is New England Association of College Schools and Colleges, and our NIASC accreditation, our diploma, is recognized by Vilnius University. So you can go straight back to the system, the national system, if you want. It is obvious that most of the people who come to our schools want to go abroad and later. And our hope, right now in Lithuania, it's been go abroad and stay abroad. We are hoping, and we see that from some of our alumni, that when they go to the Harvard, the MIT, the big schools, and they're usually Lithuanians who go, that they come back here. And this is happening more and more. And they will only come back if there is opportunity for them to put their kids in similar schools, to have the same opportunities they've had. And also the national system, like for example, I'm helping a kid currently who doesn't go to our school to go to school in the US. He has a full scholarship school, South Carolina, I think North Carolina. Anyway, he's going to play soccer there. And we have to help him because the national system is not able to communicate with the American system in a way that makes sense. You know, it's sad, but they are not equipped to deal with that school. So we're helping him, you know, for free and everything, but he's going to go and he's going to be a kid who, you know, is nothing special. He went all his life to a, you know, public school in Vilnius, and now he's going to go to the US to a huge university and play soccer and study and get more opportunities. But it's rare. It makes it more difficult. Everyone in our school goes to a school in Europe or, you know, and last thing quickly, universities also have started to do this. You now have Colombia as a school somewhere. I mean, Duke, I think Duke School in Dubai. Singapore has a couple colleges that have set up shop there. So you can now go closer to home and go to Singapore or to Dubai and be in an international college that has a big American name. I think it's NYU, right, in Dubai?
NYU.
Dubai. Anyway, if you want to add something, Cheryl or Robert.
Well, I just wanted to add that this really relates to that part of our mission that is to connect. And it's not that our program in any way isolates students. For one thing, like all Lithuanian students take mother tongue classes throughout their schooling. International students also take Lithuanian classes because we think it's really important for everyone to know a little bit of the language and to know about the culture of the place where they live. We also like connect through activities because our students connect to the community through field trips, through inviting guest speakers, through the sports program that Stephane mentioned. And we also have a very strong service program. And a lot of the service students starting in grade 9 are required to participate in service activities. And a lot of those are either here in Vilnius or within Lithuania. So there are a lot of connections.
And we do
And,
something.
and that's very purposeful because we don't want to be separated from the country that we all live in.
And we do something that probably is harder for national schools to do. We do project-based learning. You know, they get a project and they learn through it. So it's in English, but for example, this year, grade 7 or 8, I think it's 7, they did a book on the past of Lithuania, and they connected with their grandmother, their grandparents. They read the book, Shades of Gray, and of course, because we have availability, we were able to bring her, the writer, to the school and talk to them. And you know, she doesn't want the publicity, but she spoke to our kids. And they're writing a book that we're going to publish that's going to be all about the story of their grandparents and the story of Lithuanians. And that's English, you know, people from every nation of the world that are doing this with the Lithuanian in the same class.
Lucas has commented, as someone who was part of the international school system and even American International School of Vilnius for a bit, I have to say as a student, it does happen a bit, even if just on the social psychological level, but that was a while ago, so maybe things are different. Thank you for that comment, Lucas, and I would encourage everyone to also do the same and comment and ask their questions so that we have a very fruitful and instrumental discussion and we really get the things out that interest you the most. You have mentioned, I think it was Robert who has said about staff challenges, right? And that is the question that arises automatically, because if you think about Lithuanian schools, there's always, especially in the regions, there's a shortage of English teachers and other teachers as well. So how painful is this issue in international schools?
Well, I can certainly tell you right now, we are suffering a worldwide teacher shortage. And I'm just looking here in beautiful Hawaii, we are 1,100 substitutes short on any given day to support public and private schools. So it is imperative for us to, as education shifts, we want to show our students that the teaching profession is shifting. A lot of our kids grew up in this subject credit course environment where they spend an entire year teaching algebra, for example, and that might not be the career a young person today wants to get into. Schools like the American International School of Vilnius are showing that education is changing and that it's not as traditional as it once was. And we're hoping that as more and more schools enter into the 21st century focus of education, that the idea of becoming a teacher will be attractive again as a profession. And so this is something that we struggle. A school like AISV is fortunate enough that when they do go recruiting, it's an ideal location and an ideal school to work at. I'm feeling a bit sorry for some of the more challenging locations around the world where the school is struggling and mostly struggling to find the right kind of teachers for those students. So we have got to do a very good job of encouraging young people to consider teaching as not just an admirable profession, but as an ideal profession.
And I think it's important to understand also that, you know, the school started in the right after 91. Really in 93, the embassy came in and has helped. But as it was small, it was difficult. When you have 100 students, no matter how much you charge, it's hard to attract teachers from abroad, to, you know, have tons of teachers. Everything is difficult. So now, you know, we have about 340 students. We're going to grow to 500, we hope. And we've had support from the State Department, from the embassy, and we've grown. And so now we're able to give, you know, we do every year, we give scholarships. 10% of our what we earn, we spend on scholarship, right? We spend giving back to our community, specifically Lithuania. We also have more students, so we can attract more teachers, right? And we have worked hard because people come here and they love it, but they don't know about Vilnius. So we've worked hard making video, in using some of your campaign, like when they sing the Christmas song and nobody knows. We've used some of the national campaign to our advantage to publish articles about Vilnius in major teaching newspaper abroad. We've had successfully 2 or 3 articles where teachers have said, this is a gem, hidden. Please come before it's too well known. And so this is word of mouth that has helped us attract, you know, teachers who are very good and are attracting their friends, and they're coming from other school. And next year we're hiring 14 teachers because we're opening the brand new school. And so we now have, before you had about, I don't know the numbers, but probably 10% American, and, you know, the rest were Lithuanian. And now we have about 60-40 of Americans who are here, and doesn't mean they're better than the Lithuanian. The Lithuanian are great at what they do here, but it attracts a more, now we'll be able to attract more top Lithuanian teachers and bring them in the fold and have them work at our school.
But hasn't the world already learned about how magnificent Vilnius is? I mean, do you still have to tell people?
Yes, unfortunately, it's still not as well known as, when our teachers get offers from Prague, where Robert worked, or from Italy or Paris or Barcelona, they have to think hard about Vilnius. But once they come here, they notice, like, whoa, what a good choice I made, because my friends in Barcelona and Paris cannot survive and are living in 2 square meters. So they attract more. And so this will, and same for business and same for embassy. I think embassy now tell their friends, hey, that was a great posting. Business, we have some business that started, they came to our school, but started at our school and started a brand new business here and love it and are bringing more and more people.
In terms of skills, the future skills that students will need, you have mentioned several that international schools concentrate on. But what makes you think that, I don't know, public regular schools don't do that? How do you work on developing these skills specifically? Let's take, I don't know, public speaking or whatever else you wanted to mention.
Robert?
I would never, ever say that public schools aren't conscious around what they need to do to prepare kids for this changing future. I certainly do see there are barriers because of the fact that national examinations, national standards, and university entrance requirements still follow a certain pattern. Private schools, no matter where you are in the world, have flexibility to bypass some of those standards and to negotiate with universities around the type of program that they have provided from the private school, whereas a public school diploma is the same for every student, has less flexibility. What we're trying to do across the world, and certainly this is something that's happening in my country, is we're trying to raise the conversation among public, private, and charter schools to learn from each other and to see the day where public schools are offering students the same opportunities at lower cost for their students. It's just right now, it's not moving as quickly. The world is moving faster than the education sector. And if I've spoken about anything for years, it's the education sector has to look at itself the same as the medical sector, architecture, law, science, medical research. We have to move quickly in that sector to be keeping at pace with the way the world is changing.
And don't get me wrong, Zivile, last year, I think it was 2 years ago, at the heart of the pandemic, I came to this AmSham and the Ministry of Education of Lithuania was speaking, right, to AmSham. And she said all the right things. She said everything that Robert is saying about, we need to change the way we educate. We need to do this. We need to do that. But she has a huge boat to move. It's an entire system. She can't just call Robert and say, hey, come on over and change our program. She cannot do that, unfortunately. She listened and people asked questions. And I thought she was brilliant at talking about, that it's a big boat and it takes a lot of time to turn. We have like a little speedboat. We can turn right or left anytime. And we're to ask a ministry. We don't have to ask anyone. So that makes it very much more difficult for France, Lithuania, any system in the world to pivot quickly. And she's willing, she knows about this. She's been educated at some of the top schools in the world. She understands the need for those skills. She talked about it. But she said it's going to take time. It's going to take your help. They need money. They need to pay teachers more. They need to professional development. And it's not just 60, it's thousands that need it, Like we pay a college counselor to go to fairs, to visit Imperial, to talk about our school, talk about what we do, talk about Robert coming, talk about all that stuff. Lithuania cannot spend, cannot afford to send 1,000 or 500 counselors everywhere around the world to discuss those things, and they're too expensive. So go ahead, sorry.
I just wanted to ask something more specific about these skills, and I wanted to expand a little bit on public speaking, because I thought that's something that, at least in my day, no one did, and we didn't speak at school. We just like said poems, and that was it. I think now things are changing in public schools, but I wonder, in practice, in reality, do you see differences when people come from, let's say, a public school, don't join you from grade 1, but later? Do you see that these are the skills that you say will be necessary for the future are the ones not very much developed?
Well, we debate with Lithuanian schools. And I think in the area, from my observations, I think in the area of communication and presentation, of course, the ones that I see are the ones that are interested and that practice and that want to be part of this. But I mean, I don't see that as necessarily a problem or a weakness. I would say that what kind of sets our curriculum and our program apart is not necessarily in the area of communication, of students being able to express themselves, but it's more this idea that a student needs to drive his or her own learning. And that's a really hard shift, even for our students and our parents to make, because everybody thinks, well, the teacher will stand at the front of the class, the teacher will give me the information, I will write down the information, and when it comes time for the test, I will just like give all the information back. And we are really trying to break that kind of structure. We're trying to get the students to say, what is it that I want to know? How am I going to find out? And most importantly, how am I going to show what I've learned? And we think that that kind of shifting the locus of control is very important for a lot of things that the students will face in the future.
I have noticed that you said that international schools do attract new companies to invest in the city. Do you have any good examples of that happening in Lithuania?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we're at that point yet, and I can let Robert speak after me, but of course, Continental, which is in Kaunas, came and, they're at our school and they've developed an entire company that's building something, and they're executives for our school. I think if I've worked, for example, and Robert can talk about Singapore, I worked in Houston, which is a highly competitive international market where you have more than probably 10 or 15 international schools, including schools of 1,600 kids, right? And their companies fight. As a head of school, you have to meet with those companies and they buy seats. They say, okay, I need 10, 15 seats every year, and I will pay you upfront for those seats because I need my top people to come here and they need to have space at your school. And unfortunately, sometimes we can't even guarantee that. But it does two things. First, once you have that big market, it makes it that you can recruit talent from outside, but also it's very important because you can keep your best local talent too, because a company can say, look, we'll give you school for your kids at AISV and we'll subsidize it or we'll pay for it. And they can be sure that that person will not leave because they have access to a top local school and they're in it. Because let me tell you that when you want to change, if you're here in Vilnius and you're being relocated to Houston, Singapore, Hong Kong, or Dubai, you may not get into the top school, even though you're brilliant, because there's so much competition and so many expats. And I mean, Robert was in Singapore. He can talk to you about a school that has 4,000 kids and ultimate competition to get in.
Robert?
Well, just on the first question, and I appreciate what Sheryl said. She's absolutely right. One of the big shifts now is, in the past, it was about teaching kids what they have to learn. Then it shifted to what do we want to learn? And now what is most important for the future of our world is what do we need to learn? What needs to be learned in order to protect our children's future? And what I'm finding in speaking to young entrepreneurs, so I was in Prague, I got there in 1999. So you saw what happened to Prague from the late 90s to now. It's as big and as vibrant as any other Western Europe city was. It wasn't when I moved there. And so what made it attractive to the Czechs to come to the international school was the fact that they were in an environment where they were starting new businesses and becoming entrepreneurs. From my one visit here in August, in speaking with local Lithuanians, I can see that same energy, that same excitement around young Lithuanians who have seen what's happened in other parts of the world and want to create that same entrepreneurial, small business innovation here, and want their kids to go to a school that's replicating that mindset that they have for themselves. And that to me is a shift. Younger parents see the world of education differently than their parents did. And so, though we may not have the exact companies to speak to yet here, I believe that the climate is right to introduce this idea to young entrepreneurs that this is a great place to be. And there are schools that speak that language, so your kids are growing up with that advantage.
And in terms of schemes that Stephane has talked about, of companies paying the tuition fees, how popular are they worldwide, and actually how popular they are in Vilnius? Maybe someone could expand on this a little as well.
Well, there is no question, and this is the challenge to all private schools, that the packages that companies were able to present to families 20 years ago has shifted. And so companies have to be more strategic about who they're sending overseas and what the cost is going to be, the all-in cost. So gone are the days, I think, when a company can easily send a family of 5 to an international school and pay full tuition for 5 kids. Companies have to be more strategic. But because they are being more strategic and because they're sending younger people with younger families, what is really exploding in education, and especially in international schools today, is education for younger children. And there's no question that AISV is being strategic around their growth pattern by providing facilities, and not just facilities, but 21st century pedagogy for young children with young families. So that's where the real growth is happening right now, younger families with younger children.
Does anyone want to add on this?
Well, I mean, if I see, of course, here the national system has been doing activities. I was reminded by our colleague here. If Yolita Norkunaite is here, she's been at the school more than 22 years, and she's a local person. If she wants to speak a few words to maybe close us out and tell us the growth or what she's seen or the shift she's seen in AISV, that would be great. And I see we also have a couple alumni in the guest list.
Yeah, I will remind everyone that they can join in, raise their hands, and we still have a couple of minutes, and everyone who has listened can now join in and say a couple of words or ask a couple of questions. That would be great for us. If not, I want to ask also about any good internship experience in Lithuania that the school has had. because that would be something that would interest the students and the parents.
This is where we can have the greatest partnership with company. We are constantly looking for ways to provide internship for our kids. So far, you know, it's been a little difficult. We've had a few, for example, LRT or LTR has been good enough to let one of our students shadow somebody for the whole day. The student who has created a newspaper at our school, she was able to shadow that person the whole day. But it's hard in Lithuania to find internship. Most internship we find with the US, with other places in Europe who are more developed at that. So we need to work with companies. We need to work with Lithuanian companies to help us develop those things during the summer, that they accept an intern, that they let them, you know, even be in their office and work with them, making copies. I don't know, it starts like this, but, you know, of course, they're high school students. We allow most of our, we encourage all of our students to come and work for us during summer camp, teaching English, running activities. And most of our seniors do that. First, we pay them because we want them to, but they learn valuable skills like taking care of children, speaking English, making a class, helping in general. But yes, this is something we want to develop. Go ahead, Sheryl.
I just wanted to add that, like, so Stephane is speaking about internship opportunities for students, and that's something that we really want to develop. But when we talk about our community, we're also talking about our teachers. And there we really do have a lot of internship opportunities. We've worked with, help me, Stephane, the Erasmus. So we've had students from Spain that have come and served internships at our school. We've had observers from other international schools. We've had, for example, we had a counseling intern from Vilnius University who came and worked closely with our counselor over a period of 9 weeks. When we hire learning assistants, they essentially have a kind of internship because they're taken on board and they immediately have professional development of how to teach English language in the classroom so that they can support teachers. They have regular meetings. So there are more internship opportunities for staff members, maybe, than we currently have for students.
If I am, let's say, if I am someone who wants to send their kids to an international school, hypothetically speaking, and I don't have the money to cover the tuition fee, do I have any options, or do I just say bye to the school?
We have many options. We have a tuition reduction program in our website where we pay, you know, anywhere from part of the tuition to all of the tuition, depending on what you can afford. We also look for, of course, it's competitive. We look for talent. So, you know, if, for example, you're at Jesuit school and you're brilliant and you do debate and you're great, then, you know, yes, you have more chances of getting a scholarship from us. But also we take in, right now we've taken in 26 families from Minsk and Ukraine at our school just to help, tuition free, and we're teaching them English and everything, but more for their social emotional well-being than anything else. But yeah, there is opportunities for all to apply to AISV. Now, of course, you know, it's more competitive, and, you know, it's based on all sorts of different factors.
Okay, thank you so much for mentioning Ukraine. That was very important, I think, and it's sort of the elephant in the room these days, and that will finalize the discussion. And my final question, maybe you could make a short comment, would be related to that. Has the geopolitical situation recently changed anything in the way, I don't know, you attract the staff or the pupils? Do people fear of coming to Eastern Europe? Would you maybe give us a sense of how the school community is feeling about this? Just a very brief comment.
I think they were scared. Everybody was scared, and we've seen one or two families who have decided to, move to their summer house in the Maldives or a different location because they're scared. But as the thing is progressing, we're seeing more people stabilizing and understanding. We have had one U.S. Hire that we hired in January who has said, I don't feel comfortable, I do not want to come. And we've said, no problem. We've also had, Sheryl and I interviewed a family who has been displaced from Ukraine. They're back in California. They had to leave their dog in Poland. Sad story. They were teaching at the Kyiv school, but they want to come back. They're like, no, no, no. We love Eastern Europe. So they want to come back. We're talking to them. They want to come back here. So they would be a great family to have. They've lived 9 years in Ukraine. And we've also just started this morning a fund with all our students, parents, and families to produce money for, not produce, but to give donations to add to our tuition fund so we can pay full tuition for kids who are staying next year. And it started this morning, and we've already had close to 40,000 euros being donated in just a few hours. So
that's wonderful news. That's really good. I'm really glad you have mentioned that. Thank you so much. Thank you for this insightful and very informative discussion. It wasn't too interactive in terms of audience writing comments, but at least they stayed listening, which is always a good idea and good news for the speakers and for the moderator. So I want to thank you all, Sheryl Salem, Stephane Ruz, and Robert Landau, for joining and for discussing international education here with us. Have a good rest of the day, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shivile.
Thank you very
you,
much.
everyone.
Great
Bye.
job. Bye.